If you were a Cartoon Network kid in the 2000s, then Courage the Cowardly Dog probably gave you at least one nightmare you secretly enjoyed. But after rewatching the entire series recently, and I mean really watching, I've noticed a pattern. What if most of the villains Courage faces weren't actually villains, but rather researchers who were testing him? Think of like the Maze Runner, but animal version with fur. Courage is not any dog, he's a biological weapon hiding in plain sight. That might sound insane, right? Good, because I'm about to prove it. First off, Courage isn't just scared all the time for laughs. He actually shows real signs of PTSD, and I'm not just throwing that around for the dramatic flair. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, PTSD is a very real thing with very real symptoms. Stuff like reliving trauma through nightmares and flashbacks, feeling emotionally numb, avoiding reminders of the trauma, and being super jumpy or on edge all the time. Tell me, that doesn't sound exactly like Courage. The guy's constantly reliving trauma. Every episode is like a new twisted version of the last one, and half the time, it feels like his brain is dragging him into some freaky flashback loop. Sometimes he's literally having nightmares. Other times he zones out and the world around him turns into this warped, trippy mess. It's like his past is bleeding into everything. And then there's the emotional side. Courage barely ever looks happy. Sure, he loves Muriel, but even that feels more like he's clinging to the one person who makes him feel safe, not someone he's just chilling with. Most of the time, he's in panic mode, or dead silent, or just emotionally flat. It's like he's running on empty. And when bad stuff shows up, his first move isn't to fight, it's to run, hide, or come up with some wild plan just to survive. That's not fear, but clearly the life of someone who's been through it a lot and is just trying not to break again. And let's talk about how jumpy he is. Like, this dude flinches when Eustace yells, and honestly, same. But seriously, Courage reacts like someone who's constantly on edge. His body is always tense, eyes wide, ready to freak out at anything. That kind of nonstop panic is simply hyperarousal. It's when your brain is stuck in survival mode and doesn't know how to calm down. So when you stack all that together, Courage's trauma loops, his emotional shutdowns, the constant fear, the testing from all these weird villains, it starts to feel less like a random horror comedy and more like this poor dog is trapped in one long psychological experiment over and over again. And let me give you a head start first. He's not just surviving by chance and luck only, he was made to survive, which is exactly why I think he's more than just a scared dog. It's a full-on system built around watching Courage get pushed to his limit every single time. Now let me present the proof cause without it. What I just said is bluff. Let's take Remembrance of Courage's Past as Exhibit A. This wasn't your typical cartoon-style flashback where the background goes sepia and everyone gets a soft glow. Courage was catatonic, completely frozen. You could almost hear Windows XP crashing in his head. The trigger? He was being taken to the vet. Not just any vet, the same one who literally kidnapped his parents and shot them into space like bargain bin astronauts. And the only thing that snapped him out of that state was hearing the word vet, which clearly is a trauma response for a dog. Think about that for a second. This dog, who, mind you, was just a puppy when all this happened, remembers every detail. The trauma was so deep that even as an adult, a cartoon adult, but still, he's haunted by it. And honestly, it doesn't help that every other Tuesday, some demon duck or zombie director shows up trying to murder Muriel and Eustace. That kind of environment isn't exactly therapy approved. Which brings me to the real thing. Courage was never meant to be a pet. He acts like one, sure, loyal, protective, shaken like a leaf half the time, but the way he survives all this, adapts, fights back, even builds full-on machines to stop literal monsters, even for a carton, that's not normal dog behavior. That seems engineered like he was built for this. Let's go back again to Remembrance of Courage's Past. Remember that episode where Courage's parents are kidnapped by the sketchiest vet in cartoon history? This guy wasn't just taking dogs for a walk. He was sending them to space, in rockets, like some unhinged NASA dropout who didn't get the memo that earthbound dogs don't exactly thrive in zero gravity. Now here's the weird part. Courage doesn't get launched. The vet keeps him. That's the first red flag. Because why? What makes Courage different? Why single him out? Maybe it's because he showed early signs of intelligence, real intelligence, like internet hacking, vacuum modifying, morph into a literal parachute kind of intelligence. It's like the vet saw potential in Courage, something special he could use. And when I say use, I don't mean as a cuddly lapdog, I mean weaponize. Stay with me. Let's not pretend Courage is just scared and shaking in the corner all the time. He screams, yes, but that scream has power. And I don't mean metaphorical emotional power. I mean literal roof-shattering, villain-destroying, sometimes possibly lethal sonic warfare. In Ball of Revenge, he straight up obliterates every single villain with that scream. That's not a defense mechanism, but a war-torn airstrike. At some point, I had to ask, what dog does that? I mean, sure, we have huskies, but even they don't hit death by decibel levels like Courage unless you steal their treat and threaten bath time in the same breath, because Courage adapts to survive. He evolves, shapeshifts, problem solves, and he does it better than most humans under pressure. So maybe he was never adopted to be just a family pet. Maybe he was engineered, intentionally created to have abilities that could be fine-tuned, exploited, and eventually unleashed. A biological weapon wearing a collar and pink fur, but the messed up part is that little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, it's not a safe haven at all. It's not even a real home, just a controlled environment made to feel like one. A place designed to keep him emotionally attached while secretly putting him through test after test. Muriel isn't the random kind old lady who found him. She too is the part of the experiment, or maybe she's just as much in the dark as he is. Either way, Courage thinks he found a home, but what he really found was a lab in disguise. The people or things that show up to terrorize him, yeah, they start to look a little different too when you see them through that lens. Not all of Courage's enemies were, well, enemies. I know. The show throws zombies, roaches, con artists, and literal undead directors at you like it's trying to win a Most Nightmares in a Single Episode award. But once you really look at some of these characters, a pattern starts to show. Some of them weren't evil. They were just conditioned. Let's start with Schwick. Yep, that name alone deserves a pause. Schwick, our cockroach friend from the episode Courage in the Big Stinkin' City. He owns a rundown torture chamber, masquerading as a rehearsal room. But that's not the part I'm trying to focus on here. The weird part is how he talks to Courage. While every other villain refers to Courage as dog or stupid dog, which I think used to start a trend, Schwick calls him kid and son. You don't call someone son unless you see something familiar in them, some kind of reflection. And that's exactly what's happening. Schwick sees himself in Courage. They both come from abandonment. The difference: Courage was taken in by Muriel. Schwick was left to rot. Without the love Courage had, Schwick didn't stand a chance. He adapted to survive. He became what the world told him he was, a pest, freak, experiment gone wrong. And in that survival mode, he built his dungeon-like room, clung to the one mutant companion he had left, and learned how to manipulate people just enough to get by. But even in all that, he still craves connection. That's why he doesn't lock the baggas in cages or throw Courage into a pit. He talks to them, tries to impress them, even pets Courage like a friend. When he sends him out to retrieve the so-called evil package, he's not plotting world domination. He just wants a squeegee, literally, a tool to cover up the help message scrawled into the filth of his window. Because the truth is, Schwick isn't trying to be evil. He's trying to hide his past, to erase the evidence of what he's become. But he can't do it himself. He needs Courage to clean it for him. Because Courage is what he once was. Innocent, full of potential, not yet broken. The squeegee is symbolic. It's the chance to wipe away the shame, the guilt, the entire criminal identity he's been forced into. When Courage fails to deliver, Schwick snaps. Out of disappointment, not hatred. It's like watching your younger self make the same mistakes and realizing you'll never escape what you are. That's what makes Schwick one of the most tragic characters in the entire series. He isn't evil, but the product of abandonment, isolation, being labeled and left behind. And he's not the only one. Throughout the show, we see mutated animals who walk, talk, and behave like humans. Talking pigs, oversized mice, mutant chickens, characters who weren't born monsters but were transformed into them. victims of experimentation, radiation, maybe even the same twisted vet who took Courage's parents. These are beings who were once normal and were changed physically and psychologically. They don't come to the Baga house to be villains. They come because they've been altered beyond recognition and the world doesn't want them anymore. And when society throws you out, you either get crushed under the weight or you become the weight. And that brings me to a character who doesn't look mutated at all. He deserved more attention in the show, not because he's scary in the typical Courage way, no tentacles, no bug eyes, no creepy catchphrases. He's calculated, subtle, and dangerously strategic. I'm talking about Benton Tarantella, the famous independent movie director who, let's be real, is about as much a director as Eustace is a loving husband. This guy shows up in Everyone Wants to Direct, pretending to be this quirky, artistic film guy with big Hollywood dreams. But beneath that fedora and scarf combo, he's a zombie, a reanimated corpse who tries to pass as an artist. The man's trying to pull off George Romero meets Stanley Kubrick and nobody blinks. But Benton again is testing Courage. Every moment of that episode is scripted. He fakes a zombie attack to study Courage's reaction like he's gathering data. Then he comes back in another episode, angry, nasty people, and drops the disguise completely. Now, he's not hiding his decaying face or trying to trick anyone. He's just there with a camera, and this time, he's clearly here to capture something far more dangerous than film. Let's be honest, the show he's pitching about nasty people isn't the real focus. That's just bait. His real target is Courage. You know it because the second Courage does something even remotely aggressive, Benton rushes in with his supernatural camera like a villain with a deadline. That camera isn't just for fun either, it's supernatural. It literally captures a person's evil essence and can project it back out into the world. We see it when it manifests Mr. Nasty, a cruel, snide, taunting creature designed to push Courage over the edge. Benton isn't a random villain. He's one of the people responsible for orchestrating the monsters that constantly show up at the Baga's doorstep. The abominations Courage fights off every week are not random intrusions, but they're tests, setups, designed to push Courage further and further, to get him to break, to see what happens when the fear turns into rage. And when that doesn't work, Benton moves to emotional manipulation. He creates a scenario where Courage is forced to watch Muriel suffer, because Benton knows Courage isn't just physically powerful, he's emotionally charged. So he unleashes Mr. Nasty, not to defeat Courage, but to torment him. The plan is to push Courage to explode, capture the explosion, turn him into what he was always meant to become. And let's not forget the symbolism here. Benton uses a camera, a tool that records, distorts, and freezes a moment in time. That's what he's trying to do to Courage. Strip him of choice, capture him at his weakest, make that version permanent. Because at the end of the day, Benton is a spy, a puppet master. So by now, we've seen the patterns, we've seen how the villains aren't random, we've seen how some of them are just broken versions of Courage, we've seen Benton Tarantella rolling around with his cursed camera like he's working on a horror documentary no one asked for. But who's really behind all of this? It all goes back to the vet, the creep from Remembrance of Courage's past, who didn't send him up. That alone says everything. Courage is a biological weapon that escaped the lab before it could be activated, like Stitch. And that's why Benton and the others keep coming. That's why Schwick tried to recruit him. That's why Mr. Nasty was sent to push his limits. This entire show is one long disguised lab experiment. Different monsters, different triggers, new levels of stress and trauma. It's all being monitored, observed, documented. Courage is the test subject, and everyone else is just a tool. Muriel, like I've said before, she's also part of the experiment. So it's clear that Muriel isn't Courage's owner. She's his moral anchor, his reason not to lose himself. If Courage had been taken in by anyone else, literally anyone, he would have broken. Schwick is the living example of that. Same loneliness, same abandonment, but no Muriel. That's the difference. Muriel is love without condition, safety without demand. She doesn't ask for heroics. And in a world where every external force is trying to extract something dark from Courage, she's the only one putting compassion into him. Courage was always the target, from day one. Anyway, that's my take, and if you made it this far, congrats, you're officially braver than Courage. Let me know what you think, or which character you think was part of the experiment all along.